In the year 1608, a small English ship anchored off the western coast of India near the port of Surat. On board was a merchant named William Hawkins, carrying a letter from King James I of England. This moment marked the first direct contact between England's East India Company and the Indian subcontinent, an event that would quietly reshape India's political future over the next 3 centuries. At the beginning of the 17th century, India was not a weak or isolated land. It was part of the Mughal Empire, one of the richest and most powerful empires in the world. Indian ports were already active hubs of global trade. Portuguese merchants had dominated sea routes for nearly a century, while Dutch traders were rapidly expanding their influence. England, a relatively late entrant, was trying to break into this profitable Asian trade network. The East India Company itself was only 8 years old. It had been formed in 1600 by a royal charter that granted English merchants the exclusive right to trade east of the Cape of Good Hope. The company was not a government body. It was a private commercial enterprise, funded by investors, driven purely by profit, and focused on commodities such as spices, textiles, indigo, and silk. Initially, the company attempted to trade through indirect routes in Southeast Asia, but heavy competition from the Dutch made those efforts costly and unstable. As a result, company leaders began to look toward India, where Mughal-controlled ports offered access to high-quality goods and established markets. Surat, located in present-day Gujarat, was one of the most important ports in the Mughal Empire and served as a key gateway for international commerce. William Hawkins arrived with the specific objective of securing official permission to trade. At this time, foreign merchants could not operate freely in Mughal territory without imperial approval. Hawkins traveled inland and eventually reached the court of Mughal Emperor Jahangir, presenting himself as a royal envoy rather than a mere trader. His mission was to obtain a farman, or imperial order, granting the English trading rights. The Mughal court viewed the English with cautious curiosity. Unlike the Portuguese, the English did not arrive with missionary backing or territorial demands. They presented themselves as neutral traders seeking commercial exchange. Jahangir, however, was not easily persuaded. The Portuguese actively worked to undermine Hawkins, using their influence to portray the English as unreliable and politically insignificant. Despite spending nearly 3 years at the Mughal court, Hawkins failed to secure a permanent trading agreement. However, his presence was not meaningless. It established direct diplomatic contact between the English and the Mughal administration and familiarized the company with the political structure of the empire. More importantly, it demonstrated that access to Indian trade required not just ships and capital, but negotiation within existing power systems. While Hawkins struggled at court, company ships continued limited trade operations along the western coast. These early voyages were small in scale and often unprofitable, but they provided valuable experience in navigating Indian ports, customs duties, and regional authorities. The English began to understand that trade in India was deeply tied to local governance and military protection. The arrival of the East India Company in 1608 did not attract attention at the time as a turning point. There was no conquest, no battle, and no political takeover. What began in 1608 as a modest attempt to enter Indian trade would eventually evolve into one of the most powerful colonial enterprises in history.